Okay, so let's continue with the guided project. We're in part 3. We're going to be adding a table to our website. This is the list of the specials. There's a little bit of reading involved, but I will guide you through the process of putting up the table. I'm going to click on the link available. When you click on it, it will open up in a separate tab already. I'd like for you, when you have a chance, to read about tables and what they're all about. Specifically, how to define a table. I'll show you the process. It's pretty simple. How to add a border. We may not be doing that in this lesson, but we'll get back to it. How to add a border spacing. How to deal with cells. How to add a caption. Just to get started, though, we're going to be using the Try It Yourself HTML Tables Editor. It's a tool that's built into the W3 Schools website that's very handy, and it's going to allow us to learn along as we make a table. For a table, we're representing columns. Here in this case, we're going to have one table that's got 3 columns with breakfast specials, lunch specials, and dinner specials. And then we have a second table that gives us desserts and refreshments that are going to be at the bottom of the page, or toward the bottom of the page, I should say. Let's start by, first of all, making the first attempt here. We're going to scroll down a little bit and use this tool to find an HTML table. This is a very simple one. I'm going to click on Try It Yourself, and this gives you sample text. So this should kind of look familiar to what we're going to be doing. In our table, we have 3 columns: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then we have one special at the top, and then one special at the bottom. Lunch also has 2 specials, one on top, one on bottom. Same thing with dinner. The editor has a similar table that has first name, last name, age, and then it goes across with the first name being Jill, the last name being Smith, age is 50, etc., etc. One thing that I recommend you do, so that you can get familiar with how things are going to be going, this text here is separate. It's actually heading 2 that begins before the table is put in. We're going to be using that for favorites. Then in the code, if you see, we declare a table starting by opening up an angle bracket and declaring that the table is coming. We add a little bit of CSS right here, saying that the style is going to be that the width of the table takes up the whole page. We'll be changing that later, but just to show you what that does is that the table then is elastic and will take all of the page available. Then we have the first name and the last name and then the age. Now it's going from top to bottom. Notice how first name, last name, and age is going from left to right. That's something to keep in mind. Once we define the table, which by the way closes down here, just like when we open up an order list or an unordered list, we open up the table with the keyword table. Then we define that we're going to have a row, which goes across. This is the first row that says Jill Smith 50. Eve Jackson 94 is the second row, and the last row is John Doe is 80. The columns are a little bit different. We don't really define them. We just have to keep track of them, because we're defining, first of all, that we're going to have a row, and the row is going to have these 3 things, 1, 2, and 3, and then it ends. We have other codes that we're going to be using. One of them is going to be TH, that is going to be the header for this particular element. First name, you'll notice, is centered and it's bold, so that makes it a header. Last name, same thing, and age is the same thing. It's also bold and it's centered. In the second row, which is not a header, because it's defined as just data, it's just table data, you'll see Jill Smith at 50, Jill Smith 50. One thing that I like to do with sample things like this is I'm going to replace first name, last name, and age with the numbers 1, 2, and 3, and then Jill Smith introduce a 5 there, and 50 with 3, 4, 5, or 4, 5, 6, I should say. Continue 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I'm going to click the Run button, and now I see that my code, which is not really my code, I'm borrowing it as the other code that was already there, is working to give me a basic HTML table. Number 1, 2, and 3 are the headers. 4, 5, and 6 are the first row, and then the second row, 7, 8, and 9, 10, 11, and 12 is the last row. By the way, if you wanted to make yet another row, you could just copy this. I'm pressing Control C to copy, and then right after that, pressing Control V to paste, and run that, and see how I have another one. Then I would have to come back here and either change the data or leave it, but it would be 13, 14, and 15. Click Run again, and you'll see how everything's working out, and everything's expanded to 100%. I think that our table only has, we have a header, and we have 2 items per column. So I need just the header that we already have, and then we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Everything after we won't need. So at least since I went ahead and did this extra work, I'm going to delete that. Just take off those additional rows and run it again, and I see that I'm already back to where I need to be. 3 columns with multiple items here, just down along the columns. So we know that we want to say that we have favorites to be listed. Instead of basic HTML table, that H2, I will change it to the word favorites. Click on Run. This isn't saving it to anywhere, so by the way, just make sure that you don't close it before you're done, otherwise you may lose the code. I'll go back to see that I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which should be the numbers 1, 2, and 3. Number 1 is breakfast. Number 2 is lunch. And then number 3 is dinner. So we have the table header breakfast, table header lunch, table header dinner. Run. All of these are inside this table row for this code from here to here. Back to the directions. We're going to have the Dallas quiche in 2 lines, but this is only 1 item. So what I need to do is come back, and I know that that should occupy the number 4. I'm going to highlight the number 4. I did copy that text from before. I'll press Control V to paste, and actually I didn't copy. Let's go back, right click, copy, and the number 4, highlight, press Control V as in Victor to paste, and we have Dallas quiche, which is $6.95. I'm going to get rid of that spacing there. And then here, I want it to go to the next line, because otherwise it's just going to keep on going to the right. I'll click Run and see what I mean. It's too long. I need it to say Dallas quiche $6.95. Go to the next line and do green peppers and hot salsa. Now, should I go and do that on number 5? I could, but I want to save space. I want to keep the table making sense. So I'm going to delete that spacing there, and I'm going to add a break line. Here, open angle bracket, BR for break, and then press enter, and green peppers and hot salsa are on the next line, and then the table data ends. If I run, I see that I have breakfast, and the first item is Dallas quiche, $6.95, green peppers and hot salsa, which is what we want to see. As I said before, the row goes from left to right. So to do the next thing, the lunch, I'm going to copy the chicken wrap, etc. All those lines, right click and copy. Go back to the Try It editor, highlight the number 5, and press Control V as in Victor. Chicken wrap. I'm going to get rid of this spacing. And why am I getting rid of the spacing? Is because spaces mean nothing. If I run it, you'll see how it's still going to get stuck. but here it leaves a gap, so I'll delete it to just 1. Just like the previous one, I'm going to add a break so that it goes to the next line, and then bring the rest of the text up. So I have breakfast and lunch, the first 2 specials. And dinner is also going to have some specials. Fresh trout, etc. Highlight, Control-C to copy, and then that's going to be our number 6 item here. Pressing Control-V to paste. Get rid of the space. And add a break line. I'll bring this back here. And I'll run. So now we have the Dallas quiche for $6.95, the chicken wrap for $7.95, the fresh trout for $10.95, plus all the trimmings that they come with. Notice also another thing about these specials. Dallas quiche is italicized. That says chicken wrap, fresh trout. So just to make the text stand out, to emphasize it, let's start with Dallas quiche. Just before the D in Dallas, I'm going to add an open bracket EM for emphasis. And then at the end, close it with open bracket /EM. Same thing for the chicken wrap. Open there, close here. And the fresh trout. And run it. Now Dallas quiche is italicized. S is chicken wrap. S is fresh trout. So it's looking good. So this is also, I guess this would be a good point to start to think about how we're going to take this to our website. And it's very simple. I'm going to highlight the header 2 all the way down to the end of the table. That way I have the header already favorites, the table, the text that I've already put in, plus the one that's still coming, and the end of the table. I'll right click to copy, Control-C, come back to, well, I haven't opened my editor yet, so let me open up a new tab, and that was the first thing in the instructions. I'll go to github.com, and I'm already signed in. I'll go to my repository, find Arbor, and we're working on specials. So the text that I copied, just like all the other text that we've been coming in to add, will be inside of the article tags. I'll edit the file, go to the article tags, and find my way somewhere around the middle. Press Control-V as in Victor to paste. And now I have the code that I got started on the tool that we're using, W3 Schools. And just to see what this is going to be looking like, I'm going to be committing the changes. And go to load it up. I want specials HTML. So I'll highlight my website up here. You can type in the URL to your website and find specials. I'm just going to tell it to go to that page, and it's still waiting for the code to update. I'll give it a few seconds and come back. And let's reload. So I have the beginning of my table to appear. I have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dallas quiche is italicized, as says chicken wrap and fresh trout, etc. I still have the number 7, 8, and 9 there. So if you've already got the gist of what's going on, you can go back into the code to edit those items into the code yourself. I'm going to pause the video for a little bit, but I'll come back when I do that work, and I'll begin again. Okay, so I'm back, and I typed in, or rather I copied and pasted the other elements to put into the table. I think I'm just forgetting an emphasis here for the Burger Delight. I deleted the spaces where I needed to delete them. And I also did something else. I added an extra break because this particular column here was too long, and I think that we'll see as soon as I'm able to come back to see the table once it's loaded, that it could have been too long. I'm going to see what's going on by reloading, and it's still working on it. I'll be right back. It's been 30 seconds. Let's see. I reload, and now I have most of my table done on the top, except my roast beef is not italicized. I need to go back and change it. And by the way, I have been changing all of this inside the inside of my GitHub. If you went back and did it on the tool that we use at W3 Schools, that's fine as well, as long as you copy and paste correctly. I'm missing the roast beef, so that needs an emphasis. Same thing here, I need to close the EM. I'll commit the changes and I'll check it later. I still need to finish this, since if I go back to see the directions, after the table we're going to add some more text. We have the search specialties and refreshments, and it's in a smaller table. It's only 2 columns, and we're going to be able to do this using the same tool. I came back to W3 Schools. I'm going to go back to the HTML tables. That'll clear everything that I have there, and then I'll find the Fun in HTML table again and try it yourself. And I have the original sample table to work with. So if I have the search specialties and refreshments, I don't have a favorites or something like that that's outside of the table. So I know that I will not need that part. I can either leave it there and ignore it, or just get rid of it. And that way I'll just have the table. Now this table is different because it's only got 2 columns. This one has 3. How do we work with that? Well, let's try to visualize it. I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to change the entries to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And I don't think that we need the last row, since, well, we might actually. I'll just leave it there for now. So we have 1, 2, and 3, and then we have, this is actually just 1 entry here, and I'll explain when I get to it. So I will leave it there, and now I'll replace numbers 10, 11, and 12. And just for my benefit, I'm going to close that page and run again, and I have now my map here, 1, 2, 3, etc. So I know where to go and do this. Now, once again, I have 2 columns. So if I know that I have control over the rows, right? Because this is a table row that goes 1, 2, and 3, goes all the way across. And then the next one does the same thing. The columns are being defined by the data. There's 1, 2, and 3, so there's 3 columns. Not because they're numbered that way, because this could have been A, B, and C, and it still would have been the same arrangement, right? A, B, and C. It's not the content, it's the code. So I'm telling it that I have a table header that says A, one that says B, and one that says C. Well, if I only have 2 table headers, how many columns will I end up with? I'll run, and I have 2. It still has the same width because we still have 3 rows, or rather 3 columns for the subsequent rows. And I need to come back and delete the last row of every column. So my 1 and 2 are not followed by a 3, but 4 and 5, no 6, 7, 8, 9, no 9, 10, and 11 now are the makings of a 2-column table. I could return to a 3-column table, or I could do a 4-column table. I can have as many rows and columns as I want, or rather as I need. But let's not get too excited. I just want to finish this project because now we have the search specialties. And well, let's see what we can do. What if I told you that we didn't really need to jam all the information that's needed into the table the same way that we did for the first one? What we really want to do with this particular table is to have 2 columns, because nothing else here is going to be mapped like this one is. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Instead, this is more of a 1 column with content and a 2nd column with content. Since we have already trimmed it down to 2 columns, and we have our 2 rows, we can get rid of the content inside here. I know that we won't have any headers. We will have some data though. So I'll just get rid of the first row altogether, 1 and 2. Those are the lines up there. We have still 1, actually 4 and 5, 7 and 8, and we're only going to be in need of 4 and 5. We can dispense with the rest. So I will delete everything, all the rows except 4 and 5. And I'll run it, and I have a 4 and I have a 5. So now I have space for 2 columns basically. How do we put all this text in there? Well, let's start by first of all copying what the content is, which is this text, the search specialties, all the way to the bottom. Right click and copy. Go back to the Try It editor and replace the number 4. Control V as in Victor to paste everything that you just copied. And the same thing with refreshments all the way to apple cider. Control C to copy. Come back and the number 5 will now be replaced. Control V to paste. I'll run, and I have 2 very wacky looking columns, but I have 2 columns nonetheless. And to sort of sort things out a little bit or make them worse, we'll see what happens. I'm going to just sort of fix this text over here so that it appears almost as if it's just a regular list, something that you would be typing, you know, just raw text. That makes a little bit more sense to look at. Okay. I just was taking off spaces from there. This TD ends there. Another TD starts here. I'll add another space before refreshments. And no real coding going on right now, just getting rid of extra spaces and returns and making everything flow from top to bottom. Because even though this is a little bit easier to read, as far as coding is concerned, it's still going to run the same way. I'll run, and the only thing that happened is that something got pushed below. It's probably because either I went too far or there was just not enough space to fit everything in 1 column. So what we want to do now, there's a couple of links that I included. One of them is the description lists. Description lists just tell us that this is kind of like your other list that you've used before, except you have an item that's a term, a DT, as it's introduced, and then there's another item next to it that's a description. So we have a descriptive term followed by a description of that term. All of this is actually inside a description list. So how are we going to do that with this? Well, first, let's look at what our project's supposed to look like. We have the search specialties in bold, and I'm thinking that this could just be a bold, and let's pretend that we're actually working inside of a table. I'll just make that bold by adding B's. You could also use strong. The next one is going to be our first term. So that's going to be angle bracket dt. At the end of fruited pies, we finish by closing /dt. And then we actually have the description of the term, which is going to be dd inside of brackets. Apple, plum, peach, berries, cheesecake. This should all be in one line, I think. Wait, no, cheesecake's the next term. So these are our fruited pies already. All the fruits that I just named, that makes sense. So as far as berries go, that's where the dd ends. Cheesecake is our next term. That takes a dt and closes with a dt /dt. Our spicy swirl or fruit, those are the kinds of cheesecake. So that's a description, dd. /dd. Ice cream delights is going to be our last term, dt /dt. And shakes, malts, and freezes are last descriptors, dd. And we finish with /dd. Everything, all of those dd's and dt's inside of angle brackets. I'll run, and well, we're starting to see something. Dessert specialties is bold. Columns, but it's kind of funky looking, right? That's because we still need to do the second column. The second column is trying to fit in the same space as it had before, and everything wants to occupy all the space, but because we don't have any formatting on the second list, we're still in process. So let's do the second list. I know that we're going to have refreshments to be bold, as we did the other one. This is not going to be a description list. This needs to be an unordered list like we've done before. So bold, and then everything's going to take a bullet. However, these are nested lists. So once we get one started, we're going to start another one, close it. We keep on going with the first one, and then we'll start a new one. And that's actually simpler than it sounds like. So let's start, first of all, an unordered list. So bracket UL. And this is our first list item. Just for spacing here, I'll put in a space and do a first list item is fresh lemonade. Okay, that's one kind of drink. Tea is another kind of drink. So that's another list item. But berries, raspberry, strawberry, those are not kinds of drinks, they're kinds of tea. So I'll put in tab to give me some extra space here and say that I'm going to start another unordered list inside of the unordered list. So another unordered list that starts with berries. Well, no, well, yes, okay. So this is a list item, right? Because it's berries and it's all these kinds of different berries, raspberry, strawberry, or blackberry. Mint is actually a different flavor. I know that because it's a different bullet. So this needs to end that list item. And then another one needs to start here. And close right there. And regular or decaf, that's coffee, so that's a different drink. I'm just pressing tab, the tab key to get farther in and close this list item. And as we're done, ice cola is going to be a different thing altogether. So we should end that unordered list that we started here. Just for spacing, I'm going to finish it in this line. Then we continue with the original list. So we'll just say there's another list item, by the way, that we're dealing with, which is Ice Cola. I guess they have either Coke or Pepsi or something else. And then we have another category here with fruit drinks. So that's its own bullet. Continues to be an LI. So we go to the next line, we tell it to end the LI there. And the fruit drinks are cherry slush and apple cider. So this is going to be yet another unordered list with a new list item. That is cherry slush and apple cider, which is the last list item of that list. Close it there, and I set the last one of that list, so this list ends right here, /UL. And then most importantly, well, not most, but very important, is that the first list, the one that we started with, finishes right there as well. So over here, so it's at the same level as this first one, we'll do a /UL. Is that confusing enough? When I run, this happens, I get the list. However, I see that one of them is taller than the other one, or starts at a different space. What's going on is that the default of a table is for some of this text to be centered along the column vertically. But we want the list to start on top. That's actually a simple solution, just something that we haven't talked about probably, or maybe we've talked about alignment, but this is sort of a CSS issue. We haven't done any CSS on the on this site yet, but I can do a kind of a CSS by saying that this whole description list, which is 2 columns wide, needs to be aligned. And there is an align command that we can use, but in this case we want to do a vertical align. That's V as in vertical align is equal to top inside of quotes. And I run, and now we sort of get what we're looking for. We don't have any borders yet around the table, but that's something that we'll take care of when we get to the CSS part. So we don't want the whole code here. We don't want to add another body or dog type, etc. We just want the table. So from this line that starts with table all the way to the line where the table ends, /table, I want to highlight, right click and copy, take it back to my GitHub, and the assignment says after the table add the following text. So really that should be add the following text to a new table, right? So our original table starts there. We're still inside the article, so I'll put in a couple of spaces just for spacing purposes. I'll go back to the beginning of the line and press my command, or rather my Control V, as in Victor, to paste, if it lets me. Maybe I didn't copy it. Let me try that again. Highlight everything here, right click, copy, and Control V to paste. Okay, so now we have all of our code. And I'm hoping that since these looked okay the first time around, that once I commit the changes, that when I come back and check out the page, it'll be running what I want to see. So, oh, and while I'm at this, and before, I guess the last thing, I don't know if it's going to be in the following step, but just in case it's not, one thing that's been bugging me is that in this other tab, I get to see title of my page, which is not very helpful to the user. Well, title of what page? And what is the title? So I reloaded, and here's my first table with the specials, and then the dessert specialties and refreshment following up. When we get to CSS, we're going to add the boxes. So I'm going to close the editor, and I want to do something, like I said, about the title of my page. I'm going to go to Arbor directory, arbor.html is the original page, right? I'm going to click on edit. And this title of my page, this is the main Arbor Cafe. So I'll say Arbor Cafe, and I'll put in a dash and say home, because it's the home page. Slide down, commit the changes. I'll go back to the Arbor directory. And I know I've talked a lot for this video. It's almost 35 minutes. Recipe, and edit. This is the classic recipe of the month, but it's still the Arbor Cafe dash, I'll just say recipe of the month, because we don't have a lot of space sometimes on those tabs. Scroll down, commit the changes, and Arbor, click on specials, edit, and the title of my page is going to be Arbor Cafe dash specials. Commit the changes. And that's it. In the page, we have added 2 tables that give us this view. One thing that will change as we move along is that, see how it's occupying the whole space in the page? We're going to tighten it up a little bit. We're going to be adding some rules around, some lines around the box of the tables. Make it look a little bit more like what this looks like. That'll be done when we add a CSS. I see that my Arbor Cafe specials are working. When I go to home, my home is working, and specials, my specials are there. For this project, in your, actually not, we're going to click on home, and IMED 1416 GitHub.io arbor/arbor.html would be enough, but it's better if you give your instructor your main site. So I clicked on my site, and it's my username.github.io. Select all of that, go to your assignment, and click on 11.3 to get a submission going. And assignment submission, write submission, click inside the box, press Ctrl V as in Victor, get your main page here so your instructor can go and visit your pages and see your progress. Click submit to turn in, and that's it. 2 more videos to go. Hopefully they won't be this long.